Hello, my name is Elise, and I will be talking about making Tokyo 100% renewable. The problem. The problem with Japan right now is that it uses a lot of fossil fuels. These two graphs show what percentage of energy consumption in Japan comes from fossil fuels. As you can see, almost all of it comes from fossil fuels. The first graph shows that Japan is 69.4% dependent on fossil fuels, and the other graph says that Japan is 89% dependent on fossil fuels. I will be using the highest number, 89%, to ensure that Tokyo will be 100% renewable. Japan is now the world's second biggest importer of fossil fuels after China and the world's fifth largest emitter of greenhouse gases. Tokyo also has 3.8 million non electric cars. Both of these let out many pollutants, contribute to climate change, and are bad for the environment in general. But there is a reason for why Japan uses so many fossil fuels. The biggest reason why Japan uses so many fossil fuels is because the country shut down all of its nuclear power plants. It did this because in 2011, the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami destroyed Tokyo Electric Power Company's power plant. After this, most of the energy consumption went back to fossil fuels instead of nuclear power. Japan was planning to build more nuclear power plants to decrease fossil fuel consumption, but now, people worry that if the power plants open again, another natural disaster will destroy them. That's why all 43 nuclear power plants are now shut down in Japan. Tokyo's energy use. The average electricity use per year per capita in Tokyo is 7,458 kilowatt hours of energy. There are around 9 million people in Tokyo, so for the entire population of Tokyo, this would be around 67 billion kilowatt hours of energy. 11% of the energy is already renewable, so 7 billion kilowatt hours of energy are already renewable, which means I still have to make around 60 million kilowatt hours of energy renewable. To stop Japan's large use of fossil fuels and make the city renewable instead, Tokyo can use geothermal energy, solar energy, and replace gas cars with electric cars. Geothermal energy. Half of Japan's active volcanoes are constantly monitored, which means they are also easily reachable, and those can be used for geothermal energy. Some of these are private or guarded, so probably only around a fourth of the available geothermal energy can be used. Since the largest energy production from the geothermal energy of Japan is 23 million kilowatts of electricity per year, one fourth will produce around 6 million kilowatts of electricity per year. Since there are 8,760 hours in a year, the geothermal power plants can provide 52.5 billion kilowatt hours of energy per year. There are still 7 billion kilowatt hours of energy left to make clean. Geothermal energy cost. The initial cost for a geothermal power plant is around $2,500 per installed kilowatt. This will cost around $15 billion. After that, operating and maintenance costs around 1 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour. The operating and maintenance cost is $1.5 billion if 3 cents are paid per kilowatt hour of energy. This can be funded with the money that Japan was going to use on nuclear power plants. Japan had set $120 billion aside for this. That still leaves $103 billion to pay for other things. Solar energy. Solar panels can be placed in the Tottori Desert of Japan because it is very warm and sunny there, and there is a very low population of only 200,000 people. The total surface area of it is around 750 square kilometers. Around a quarter of that land is usable for solar panels because there are no people in it, which means that around 190 square kilometers can be used. A 72 cell solar panel takes up 2 square meters of land. This gives area for around 95 million solar panels, which produces around 78 billion kilowatt hours of energy per year. But the placing for solar panels has to be good, and the solar panels need space between them. So only half of that amount can be used, which is around 47 million solar panels. This produces around 38.5 billion kilowatt hours of energy per year. This means that Tokyo will have 30 billion extra kilowatt hours of energy. They can sell this to other cities and countries. The average 450-watt solar panel costs $200. The solar panels for Tottori will cost $9.4 billion in total. The money will be paid with Japan's defense budget, which is $48 billion. This leaves the Army's budget with $41.3 billion. As extra training for hard work in warm weather and for precision, the soldiers training for the Army can set up the solar panels for free. Volunteers can also help. Japan can sell its extra clean energy to other countries. 1 kilowatt hour of energy costs around 13 cents. So, with 31 billion kilowatt hours, Japan can earn around $4 billion. Electric cars. 98% of the cars in Tokyo are not electric. This covers around 3.8 million cars. Those cars will all have to become electric. Half of these cars, which is around 2 million cars, will immediately become electric. 1/4 of those cars will be replaced with the Tesla Model S cars, and 3/4 will be replaced with Hyundai Ioniq electric cars. So 500,000 cars will turn into Teslas, and 1.5 million cars will be Hyundais. Teslas are more efficient than Hyundais, but they use more energy for transportation. Headquarters of Hyundai are in South Korea, so those will waste less energy and money on transportation. People will have to sell their old cars to neighboring cities or countries to ensure that there are no more gas cars in Tokyo. The other half of the cars will be made in Japan. Japan has many car making brands, so those will all turn into electric car brands. The extra 1.8 million cars will be supplied for free by those factories. The cost. A Tesla Model S car costs around $80,000. The final Tesla cost will be around $40 billion. A Hyundai Ioniq car costs around $35,000, so the final Hyundai cost will be around $52.5 billion. In total, this is $92.5 billion. To pay for this, the money that Japan was going to use on nuclear power plants will be used. They still have $103 billion left after some was taken for geothermal energy. After using the money, Japan will still have $10.5 billion left to spend on other things. But for electric cars, there are more costs than just the cars themselves. You also need car charging stations so people can actually use the cars. The average car charging station, including setting it up, costs $2,000. Most countries need around half the amount of public charging stations as the amount of electric cars they have for people to be able to use their cars and charge them. Since 3.8 million cars will become electric, we need 2 million charging stations. In total, charging stations will cost $4 billion. This can also be paid with Japan's nuclear energy budget, which still leaves $6.5 billion for other things. Scientific reasoning for geothermal energy. Japan is the optimal location for generating electricity from geothermal energy. Japan has 119 active volcanoes, so it has a lot of geothermal energy. The geothermal resources that Japan has can create around 23 million kilowatts of electricity, which is enough to power around 40 million households. Geothermal energy only has a 20% efficiency, but there is so much of it in Japan that can be used that it still provides a lot of energy. Geothermal energy is renewable and emits a lot less pollutants than fossil fuels. Scientific reasoning for solar energy. Japan is a very warm and sunny country, so solar energy can easily be taken. The land is still dry, warm, and sunny in the winter. There are around 1,800 hours of sun per year in Tokyo, which means that there are around 5 hours of sun per day. Solar panels have around 20% efficiency, which isn't very high, but it is enough to help power Tokyo. Solar energy is also renewable and doesn't pollute. Many cars are produced in Japan, and a few of those are electric as well. Because of this, it is easy to get electric cars to Tokyo if people buy them. Companies can start only making electric cars to provide cars for Japan's citizens and other countries. Electric cars are also produced in neighboring countries, like South Korea, so transportation of cars won't pollute a lot. Gas cars are 20% efficient, while electric cars have 80% efficiency. This is a very big difference, and it makes electric cars worth it. Advantages of geothermal and solar energy. Geothermal energy. Geothermal energy doesn't affect the local environment much because large areas don't have to be cleared to produce geothermal energy. Like with damming and mining, geothermal power plants are very easily integrated into communities with almost no visual impact. Geothermal energy is very sustainable since it is available for 24 hours a day, 365 days per year. Geothermal energy is very efficient for heating, and hot water produced by it can be used by local hotels and greenhouses. The geothermal power plants can also enhance tourism in some cases. Solar energy. Solar energy is great because it can be used anywhere with sunlight. Solar panels create jobs for people such as solar panel installers, manufacturers, etc., which helps the economy. Solar panels also contribute to cleaning the air, which reduces respiratory issues. Advantages of electric cars. Electric cars are cheaper to run and maintain than gas cars. They also drive with much less sound. There are a lot less harmful emissions from the cars, which is good for people's health. Electric cars also come with safety improvements. An electric car has a lower center of gravity, which makes it harder for the car to roll over. While geothermal energy has some advantages, it also has disadvantages. In some cases, geothermal power generation can cause earthquakes due to hydraulic fracturing. Geothermal energy has some negative environmental effects, like adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere by taking sulfur dioxide and silica out of the ground. Many hot spring owners are worried that their hot springs will malfunction if geothermal power stations are installed, but this has not been scientifically proven. Geothermal power plants give off a bad smell because of the sulfur they release, but most people in Japan are used to this because they are around hot springs a lot. If a geothermal power plant is well kept, the smell will be very minor. But the advantages of geothermal power definitely outweigh the disadvantages because geothermal power pollutes a lot less than fossil fuels. If more earthquakes are forming than usual, researchers should look into if geothermal plants are the cause of it. Some geothermal power plants may have to shut down because of this, but Tokyo still has extra energy from solar panels if anything goes wrong. Solar power also has some disadvantages. Solar power is pretty expensive and it requires a lot of area. Solar energy is also very dependent on the weather. If there is no sun for a very long period of time, you won't be able to get any solar energy. Transportation of solar panels creates some pollution, but a lot less than fossil fuels do. The pros also outweigh the cons here because solar energy is great for the environment. Japan has the needed area for solar panels, and Japan consistently has a lot of sun. Electric cars also come with some cons. They are expensive to buy in the first place, and charging them takes a lot of time. Electric cars are also heavy because of their battery pack, which makes transportation of them more difficult. The silence that electric cars have can also be a disadvantage. People like to hear noise if others are coming from behind them, but an electric car is silent, which can lead to accidents in some cases. Electric cars are also limited by their range and speed. Most electric cars have a 50 to 100-mile range and then have to be recharged again. So right now, they aren't usable for long journeys. However, the advantages make more impact than the disadvantages, so electric cars are great to use, especially because they pollute a lot less than gas cars and are way more efficient. Overall, I think the solution is very effective and good. Tokyo can easily use solar energy and geothermal energy to make the city 100% dependent on renewable energy. The extra renewable energy that Tokyo will produce will also come in handy for the growing population. Of course, the proposal has some flaws with the cost of things. Another flaw of the plan is that it will probably take a lot of time before everything is actually installed and done. There may also be some people who don't agree with making Tokyo renewable, which might cause some strikes. Many people might want a Tesla if they get a Hyundai or the other way around, but I think this plan will work very well if followed, and it'll make Tokyo a very environmentally friendly place. Thank you for listening. This is my bibliography.